Hey everyone, and welcome back to the series called Anxiety Reduction via Self-Regulation. I'm your host and teacher, Sarah McKelvey. I wanted to include some notes and thoughts and musings on the role of maintaining ongoing self-care in our quest toward becoming a self-regulated person. I think it's really essential. So let's take a journey through what self-care is and how you might make sure to implement it in your life and how it's related to self-regulation. Self-care is an ongoing background activity that helps us invest in ourselves in such a way that we kind of build up a reservoir or a buffer so that when the stressful situation happens, when we're triggered, when we're dysregulated, that we've already created a bank, so to speak. Our goal is to achieve more equanimity in the world. So through life's gains and losses, through stresses and times of peace, through opportunities and failures, that we can cultivate a state of equanimity more of the time, rather than succumb to stress reactivity, which is always going to be our default. Self-care is really about trying to fill your bucket, so to speak. That's a nice metaphor to use. So when you're filling your bucket regularly, ongoingly, in a sustained way, you have far less resentment, far less stress reactivity, much more tolerance and bandwidth for the crap that comes up in your life. Self-care is a well-established idea by now. Most people I know what it means and are consciously tracking how well they're doing on it, and they correlate it with emotions and stress and life satisfaction. So this is not, a brand new idea, but most of us probably aren't doing enough of it still. What is it? What is self-care? So Wikipedia and the World Health Organization defines it as taking all the steps that you can to take care of your physical health and your well-being, including hygiene, nutrition, managing stress, and seeking medical care and taking prescribed medications as needed. But I want to offer a broader and more inclusive focus of our attention on the self and its needs. On your physical needs, mental needs, emotional needs, relational needs, or even higher order needs like creativity, purpose, deep conversation, spirituality, or other meaningful activity. A book title I recently came across on this topic really summed it up well. That book title was Nourishing Body and Soul. I think that really evokes a felt sense of what satisfactory self-care feels like. We feel nurtured and nourished when we're regularly performing self-care activities. Self-care might require you to ask some questions like, what do I really need? What do I really need more of? What do I need in this very moment? In an ongoing manner to take care of yourself. And this is an act of self-responsibility. We can't really depend on others taking care of us. When it happens, spontaneously and from the free will and generosity of others, welcome it, receive it, let yourself be nurtured by it. But we really can't depend on it. So we must cultivate efforts to take care of ourselves regularly so that we feel like our needs are met. What is the difference between self-regulation and self-care? There's a lot of overlap, really. I read an article to kind of fill this out a little bit, and I'll link it in the description box below. In that article, I quote, it was said that self-care might be thought of as a broader background set of activities that support physical and mental health, while coping skills are employed to mitigate stress and regulate painful and difficult emotions. Okay, so the contrast here in this article was really useful. This person who wrote the article used a graphic to kind of convey what I'm going to convey to you verbally, which is, if we think of self-care, we want to think of things like adequate sleep, or taking naps, nutrition, physical activity, and creative and spiritual activity. And when we think of coping skills, we want to think of things like deep breathing, mindfulness exercises, progressive muscle relaxation, journaling. The person even uses cooking. So there's just some overlap here. They're nourishing activities, but we really want to think about coping skills that help us become regulated are more short-term, in the moment, in real time. You're reacting to something specific, a specific stressor, an emotional crisis, something, really discrete. And it's great to have lots of different coping skills to meet that. Some examples that this person in the article mentioned would be like, if you get a flat tire, if you have an event, or a friend cancel on you, if you receive bad news, if you lose an opportunity, if you're ghosted, if you got into a conflict with someone you care about. That's kind of the realm of ongoing self-regulation and coping skills and trying to be present in painful emotions without acting destructively. But self-care is more a bank that you develop over time in which you make investments. It's more proactive behavior that increases your quality of life and lets you get through those, short-term specific crises, disappointments, negative experiences with more resilience. It is known that we do have a finite set of resources. We have finite energy and finite emotional capacity on any given day. Our fundamental reset is a good night of sleep. So on any given day, we only have so much to give, then we're kind of spent. There is this interesting theory called spoon theory. I first learned of it from a client. I think it's a really useful metaphor here to just conceptualize your energetic and emotional bandwidth. It was developed by someone who was dealing with lupus, so a chronic illness, in 2003 as a way to cope with and manage her illness. And what she suggests is that we visualize a set of spoons to help you conceptualize units of mental and physical energy that you have for daily activities and tasks. And what this helps with is that you can plan your day out in advance so as to not run out of energy or units of energy in spoons before the end of the day. Think about a self-care routine. And really, if you really like this teaching or resonate with it, I really feel strongly that you should maybe make this a little more formal. Even if you block out time and then within that time you're more spontaneous with what you need in any given moment. There is a new movement. It was popularized by the hashtag SelfCare Sunday, I think on Instagram. And what SelfCare Sunday, the rise of it, advocates for is that you take a day of the week, which in some traditional religious context is the Sabbath, so there's some overlap here with some older, more archaic ideas of, resting from work and labor. What's suggested here is to, really turn off your devices, tune out of your obligations, duties, responsibilities, interconnection, and you really focus on nourishment. Again, nourishing mind and soul. A lot of famous celebrities and public figures are doing this and practicing this. And it was said in another article I read that this probably is rising because in the post-pandemic work from home movement, we actually need to be more creative and strategic about our boundaries because, the work-life demarcation is really blurring. So we really need to be very intentional about personal time and restoring ourselves and making sure we do that self-care so that we're resilient when the crisis, stressor, issue, complication comes, and that we stay regulated in equilibrium. And we can do that with a routine like SelfCare Sunday. I think that's a luxury for many people. I mean, that's a whole day out of 7, so by no means do you have to be perfectionistic about this. It could be a 2-hour period that you consistently reserve per week. It doesn't have to be a whole day. But this movement you might draw strength from. And what does one do on a self-care Sunday? Let's talk about some examples. I'm going to talk about some sort of general examples that help many people, and I'm going to get personal with you around what really helps me in my efforts towards self-care. Generally, when we think of like SelfCare Sunday and we see, Instagrammable pictures associated with it, we do think about like self-spa days. So, things like, grooming and like applying lotion to your body and taking baths and, washing your hair mindfully and like brushing it out and shaving and like aromatherapy. And did I say baths? I love all of this, right? But that's only one version of a self-care Sunday. Maybe that is like, sounds like heaven to you. And maybe that's like, that's kind of like frou-frou and indulgent. I don't really care about that, but that's kind of a version, of self-care Sunday. And that would be like really treating yourself physically and really nourishing your body. Alongside that, I really think resting is really important if you're kind of taking up that version of Self-Care Sunday, napping, resting, lounging in a hammock, just going into a more of a restorative mode versus a productive mode, which is the mode most of us are in most of the time. It might be associated with relaxing rituals like drinking herbal tea, reading, taking long walks, even having long talks with friends, that you haven't talked to in a while. Just kind of giving yourself over to like kind of a slow saunter where you're connecting and doing really like basic, simple things that are good for us, like being in nature or cooking or again, bathing. That's really restorative and makes you feel like you're energized for more of the push or the hustle that most of us are all kind of enamored with. I am in the process of developing a cool resource. If you subscribe to the Center for Higher Consciousness email list, you will get this resource for free. In the description box below, I will link the way that you can subscribe to the Center for Higher Consciousness email list if you would like. And that is a self-care checklist. So a checklist that gives you many different examples of ways you might take care of yourself. So it's a free resource to you. If you would like it, subscribe and I will send that to you promptly. Remember, being self-regulated means being able to monitor ourselves and our impulses such that we don't just act them out, and conversely, we don't suppress them, that we are in healthy connection to our impulses, emotions, desires, that we have an ability to control ourselves, that we can manage ourselves, and that we can stay in a healthy mode of self-observation such that we can be really effective with others and in our lives. What I do personally when I am engaging self-care, as I mentioned, I wanted to share on a personal level, is one thing that I do is I really take a demarcated break from work, chores, duties, responsibilities, and what I call like the administration of like everyday life. So like things like, renewing my license plates and, going to the post office and, filing a tax form and, this kind of like necessary, responsible things that, are kind of tedious, really creating a nourishing break from all that, minutia and, excessive task list is really helpful. And I really have trained myself and my mind to really click over. I know for a lot of people that's really hard. And if that is hard for you, I would suggest investment in meditation and mindfulness practices to help you focus, which I've echoed in other videos. I think that as a inner skill is so important, right? If you're trying to do Self-Care Sunday, but you're distracted by ruminating about everything going on, it's not going to be nourishing. You're really not going to reap the benefits of it. It's going to be like you're going through emotion. So it's essential to win over this ability to focus. Difficult, but not impossible. So taking that break and having that time for me, because of my own values and needs, and I encourage you to kind of soul search on an individual level on this dimension. I'm highly creative, I'm highly introspective. So in that time period, it's not just about taking baths. That's not going to fulfill me. It's about creating art. I might do that. I might journal. I might seek out really interesting experiences. Those things really fill me up, like something complex but not stressful. So it's really good to know ourselves on a deep level and our unique needs and personality constitution in order to know what really fills us up. For one person, the thing that might fill me up might be agitating to that person and vice versa. So it's really good to know ourselves. But that break where I'm just focused on like what would be interesting or nourishing for me is really nice, especially in a very busy life. Cleaning my space to a level, that's really satisfying. I really do like aromatherapy. So lighting candles or incense, spraying down counters and really wiping them down with Mrs. Myers. Mrs. Myers does not sponsor me, but I'm open to inquiries from Mrs. Myers. I do also like during self-care to really get out in nature. I'm a nature-loving gal, and I like to soak up the sun. I think that the sun is really, of course, in the short term, it's kind of draining. You kind of get sedative in its influence, but it's really rejuvenating overall. I like to get out amongst the plants and animals and, the stillness of nature. And I like to, spend long hours in a hammock or walking around, reading and thinking and musing. If I could bring a singing bowl out there, I would. I don't own one yet, but yeah, so music and sound healing and nature, aromatherapy. I guess I do value a lot of sensory experience in nourishing myself, a really embodied sensory experience where I can learn and grow and yet really feel like I'm connected to really nourishing elements around me. And another plug for journaling, because it is so important. Journaling, I'm going to take this far. If you're interested in this, I'm going to really build out a lot more teachings on this subject. Journaling for me is one of the most restorative and meaningful activities that I've experimented with in my life. It is restorative, it is meaning making, it is creative, it hits a lot of boxes. And that's really a break from decision making, engaging in stressful situations rather than avoiding them. And you don't want to do self-care as an avoidance strategy to life. You want to use self-care to kind of build up that reservoir so that you can meet life's challenges and deal with things more effectively. And I just wanted to make that plug. That comes up in the last video too. We can over-rely on self-care and distraction and coping strategies and not deal with life. We don't want to do that. We want to build up our reservoir so that we're in life and dealing with the things we need to in life. So I hope that was enough encouragement to consider investing more readily in your self-care. I wanted to mention that this series has an accompanying e-workbook that is available for purchase and download. It is a compendium to this series and gives you ample opportunity to take notes as you're watching these videos, to customize your plan regarding all of these teachings, and to just kind of have a central place that you record this information and really kind of work it on a personal level. You could work this workbook and take it to your practitioner to review and study with you and make suggestions. I highly recommend that. You can download this resource and begin to work it on a very personal level. There will be a link in the description box below as to how to find that and download that resource. Again, I'm your host, Sarah McKelvey. Thank you so much for tuning in.